And so now I'm going to ask Marisha to read Resnick's presentation of this game theoretic structure known as the Clash of Wills. It's based on a fictional story. Marisha?
Here is the story. Abel and Baker, two fast friends who dwell in different cities, are planning a weekend together over the telephone. They have heard radio reports that the telephone service between their locations will be interrupted for several days and are trying to settle their plans while they can still communicate. Abel wants to go to a ski resort in the mountains. Baker wants to go to a music festival in a distant city. Although both prefer being together to being alone, Abel prefers the ski resort to the festival, and Baker has the opposite preference. However, both prefer going to either location to staying at home alone. At the beginning of their conversation, they share this information, and it quickly becomes clear to both that neither will cheerfully yield to the other's wishes. Yet before they can start to work out a compromise, the phones go out. What should they do?
Okay, so now let's think about the structure of this particular game, okay? What we have here is we have two players, Abel and Baker, who have related but slightly different preferences. They're trying to coordinate their plans because they would most prefer to spend this weekend with each other. But Abel would prefer it if they spend the weekend skiing, and would only second prefer spending the weekend with Baker. But notice that Abel would prefer festival with Baker, even though he'd prefer skiing with Baker to festival with Baker. He would still prefer festival with Baker to skiing alone, but the very last thing he would like to be wind up at the festival alone. Baker has related but different preferences. Baker would most prefer the outcome of both of them winding up at the festival. Second of all, he would prefer skiing with Abel. Next, he would prefer to be at the festival alone, and the worst outcome for him would be skiing alone. But all four of these outcomes for Baker and all four of these outcomes for Abel are preferred by both of them to staying at home alone. So we can eliminate staying at home alone, which would be dominated by these other choices. So they're negotiating about what to do, and they figure out they can't find the solution, and all of a sudden the possibility of communication is broken off. And they have to decide, sitting there on their own, what to do. What would you do in this situation if you were Abel or you were Baker, and the possibility of communicating was now no longer possible?